Hello there. Welcome back to the Happy Healthy Hustle. I'm your podcast host, Christiana Schröter, and I'm here today with a special guest. Claudia McDivitt is here today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Thank you so much, Claudia, for being here today.
Hi, thank you. I am so excited to be on your show and just share a little bit about my story. But my name is Claudia. I live north of Atlanta. I have two precious kiddos, 8 and 6. So, in a very busy season with them, but soaking it up. I've been married for 12 years and I am a health and mindset coach for women. And so, I really like to dive into the mindset piece of our health journeys, what that looks like, overcoming those negative thoughts about ourselves and really transforming our mindset so that we're able to walk confidently in the women that we were created to be. And so, that's a little bit about who I am.
Hmm. So you already hear from this wonderful introduction that this is going to be a lot about mindset shifts and maybe getting into a little bit more of a positive mindset. And I kind of call it frequently a mind shift because you always think of like set as being something that's stagnant, while your mind is actually really fluid and we can work with it just like we work with other parts of our body in like starting weaving in little positive habits. So, Claudia, how would you describe your superpower? Thinking about yourself, what do you feel is your unique gift?
I really believe that my superpower is helping women transform their mindset around health and wellness. I love to empower women to build confidence by making those sustainable changes, by developing those simple health habits that, yes, are going to help them move forward in their health goals, but also align with their personal values and their personal goals. Obviously, it's not just about the physical change, but also about, really cultivating a mindset of growth and cultivating that mindset of really starting to make those shifts from I have to do this to I get to, and really starting to view our health as a gift and not as a burden. I feel like once we start making those shifts in with our mind, we are really able to fully step into who we were created to be and really, give our families the best version of us, give our kids the best version of us, our friends, our community. And so I feel like that is my superpower to help women transform their mindset so they're able to do that more confidently.
Oh, that's amazing. And how, I mean, did you struggle with it yourself? How did you arrive at it? What was your biggest challenge in your life and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very broken home and I wasn't able to recognize it then, but as I've gotten older, as I went to college and graduated and early on in marriage, I used to see these I when I looked back and reflected, I would see these kind of patterns when it came to my mindset. And at the time, I would really brush it off, right? So, personally, I struggled in school. It didn't come easy to me. I was someone who had to study hours for like a 30-minute quiz where I had friends who just glanced at their notes and they would make A's. And so I struggled in school. School didn't come easy to me. And so I would say things like, I'm dumb, or I'm never going to amount to anything, or I'm never going to be able to have a job that I love because I'm never going to be smart enough to retain this information, to do a job that I love. And I used to laugh it off and I used to just let it roll off my shoulder. But honestly, as I got older and started noticing these patterns and how I was talking to myself, I really began to work on my mindset. I really began to kind of peel back the layers and try to figure out, okay, why am I talking to myself like this? Like, yes, school might have been hard for me, but let's try to focus on the things that I've overcome in my life. Let's try to focus on the things that I am good at, that I am gifted at. And just because that wasn't a, biology class, that doesn't mean that I'm not smart. That doesn't mean that I can't be successful. That doesn't mean that my story is any less significant. And so I really feel like those first couple of years of marriage and starting about 5 or 6 years ago when I really started to take a deeper dive into my mindset and the things that I was struggling with and really started working through those limiting beliefs and the ways that I viewed myself, that is when I started to see that shift. But, that's the beautiful thing about all of our stories is there's going to be hard times, there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be things that we struggle with, but I always say like it's what we choose to do with those struggles. It's what we choose to do with, things that we have walked through. Like that's what matters. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of arrived to being super passionate about this that I'm in now. We've all doubted ourselves. We've all second guessed ourselves. And so how do we take those doubts and how do we learn from them and work through them so that we can walk confidently in the women that we are today?
I always say we choose opportunities, right? You choose opportunities. And while nobody really chooses challenges, think of the challenge as something that really forms you and transforms you. So I love that you kind of thought of this as something that you struggled with it yourself, you overcame it, and now you can actually help others with it too. So, who or what helped you overcome that? What was the trigger that really got you out of that limiting belief thinking?
I think part of it was just self-awareness of, realizing the way that I viewed myself was in such a negative light. And, as I started having kids, the last thing I wanted was for my kids to see a mom who wasn't confident in who they were because I didn't want that to trickle down to them. Like I saw how that played out in my family dynamic growing up. And the last thing I wanted was to see that play out in my family. And so I think what start the awareness around how I was feeling and then really diving into, different podcasts and different books. And then I think another huge part of this was really letting people in that accountability, that safe place of my really dear friends who have known me for, 15 plus years. And where I was able to say, like, these are things that I've struggled with and I kind of kept them under wraps or I've brushed them off, like I said earlier, and never really took ownership of why I was feeling these things and really never took ownership of walking through them instead of just pushing them to the side and ignoring them. And so I think being surrounded by a community that cared for me, paired with just the awareness around how I was feeling and ultimately deciding like I don't want this dynamic to continue into my family and I want to do something different. I want I want something different for myself. And then just beginning to take those steps towards that.
Sometimes that thinking just keeps going on, and you don't even realize the impact that it really has because you feel miserable. You're beating yourself up so much, you feel inferior, and you constantly compare yourself to others. And at the same time, we need to get to that point where you all of a sudden take a stance and you're like, all right, I need to take action. And I have a podcast episode where I actually talk about this, that there is a difference between an action goal and a result goal. In an action goal, you might have the ultimate outcome, which could be I'm going to be a more optimistic and positive thinker, but you need to take action in how can I change my life in getting there. Maybe I need to weave in little moments where I listen to something that's joyful. Maybe I need to read something that's joyful. Maybe I need write myself little sticky notes that when I get into this funky thinking, I read that and it reminds me that yes, I can be a very fun person, right? And result goal is really where you basically look at the outcome like I'm going to be more positive. Well, how are you going to get there? Right? So without the action, you're not going to see the result. And I love that you talked about the fact that you started looking at your people around it, the community, started looking at yourself, and you said, well, this has to stop because that's the first action that you actually take ownership in your life. I need to do something. And that something has to start today so that I can actually become the person that I'm really meant to be. And now you're reaching out and helping others. So, how can we reach out and get in touch with you, Claudia?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on my website. It's claudiamcdivitt.com. I'm also on Instagram at Claudia McDivitt. And then I have a podcast as well, Boldly Living Your Everyday. And so those are three ways that you can connect with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia, for being here today. To all the listeners, reach out to Claudia, listen to that podcast episode that is about action versus result goals. And maybe in the show notes, you can also find out some other things that you might have thought about you can change in your life. And send me a DM or leave a message down there about what you felt was the most surprising or most life changing thing that you could take action on today. Thanks for tuning in. I can't wait to see you on the next episode of Happy Healthy Hustle.